Supreme Court came down today with their decision on Roe, and obviously we knew there were going to be a lot of people happy and a lot of people unhappy. My views on this subject are differing, but I'm not doing this today to talk about my views. What I want to do is talk about what Biden had to say about it, and then really, because the way I feel about celebrities, the way they throw their 2 cents into everything when they want to keep their name out there and stay relevant. So I'll just start by saying Biden made his comments, and of course, it's a sad day for the country and for women all around the world, all around our country. It's going to set dangerous precedent. It's going to hold doctors liable if they perform abortions and so on. And again, I'm not here to debate this decision or my feelings on that subject, because I have a couple of different views. But Biden basically said, in a nutshell, that the Supreme Court used laws and rationale dating back to the 1800s for their decision. We all know that's when Biden was born, around the 1800s. And he said, at this point is what bothered me the most, he said this was a deliberate effort by the court to overturn the right for women to get abortions under the Constitution. And to me, that's nothing than a dig to Donald Trump for his appointments to the Supreme Court, who were involved in this decision to overturn Roe. But I can't help but talk about why they insist on blaming Trump for everything that's done. We know Trump appointed these justices. We knew they were conservative-thinking justices. And they decided based on their beliefs, their convictions. They didn't decide based on Donald Trump's thought on the situation. They weren't told by Donald Trump when they were appointed to the Supreme Court, you need to overturn this case. They are all well-educated judges, lawyers, and they made the decisions based on their beliefs. Basically, what they're supposed to do. We know they got to look at case law and all that stuff, but when it boils down to it, it's a decision that they made for what they believe in, for what they believe is right. But when the media outlets and some other media so-called journalists, what I found interesting today also was they took it as far as pointing the finger and actually suggesting that the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was partly responsible for this decision today. And their reasoning behind that was because she didn't retire soon enough. What they meant by that was she should have retired while Obama was president for 8 years. So he would have appointed a liberal justice to the Supreme Court. But she chose to wait, and Donald Trump made the appointments after her departure. But that's the thinking of the left. They need someone to blame. If it's not a Republican politician, it's a Democrat who has different views than they do. So they're blaming a late Supreme Court justice partially because she didn't retire sooner than she chose to. Does that make sense to anyone? It doesn't make sense to me. What would have happened if she was involved in this? I personally don't know. But they're going to use that talking point as another reason why the justices chose to do what they did today. But what gets me the most about all of this, it always boils down to Democrats and Republicans and the celebrities have to put in their 2 cents. Now, I'll start off with Alyssa Milano, left-leaning liberal who supports every bad policy Joe Biden has ever been involved in as a senator, as a vice president, and as a president. She lives, bleeds, and breathes for Joe Biden's politics, which is a joke. Alyssa Milano said, and I quote, "This will have dangerous, deadly consequences. Banning abortion will disappropriately impact people of color, LGBTQ plus communities, people struggling to make ends meet, young people, and people in rural areas." Now, of course, Milano, being a liberal, has to throw in race, people of color, but she had to throw in the LGBTQ plus, because we all know men can get pregnant, right? So if a man, got pregnant, now, again, he wouldn't be able to get an abortion legally. That's their way of thinking. What does the LGBTQ plus community have to do with this decision? In my view, nothing. But that's just another liberal talking point, because we all know how they embrace all of this. Barbara Streisand, who I didn't even know she was still alive, she labeled the Supreme Court the American Taliban and urged people to never stop the fight. And quite frankly, does anyone care what Barbara Streisand has to say? Barbara Streisand hasn't been relevant in probably 20 years, but all of a sudden she felt the need to come out and throw in her 2 cents, and her 2 cents don't mean anything. And then there's Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman, if you recall, was the one who went off on Ron DeSantis for his decisions in Florida, calling him a Nazi and Hitler. Another old actor who really needs something to do. I guess he's bored. He doesn't have any roles right now. He said, "To all women in this country that demand personal autonomy, and not some ISIS-like group of dried-up old men dictating to them, I support you 100%. Now, isn't that odd that he said dried-up old men dictating to them? Isn't that what Joe Biden is? A dried-up old man who basically probably can't even brush his teeth by himself. But Ron Perlman, of course, supports everything that Joe Biden says and does, just like Alyssa Milano, just like Barbara Streisand. But they celebrate everything Joe Biden does. And again, if there's anybody who's a dried up old man, it's Joe Biden. But Ron Perlman proved himself to be nothing but a hypocrite with that ridiculous statement. And then it was Bette Midler. Again, I didn't know Bette Midler was still around, but she chose to, of course, pipe up and say Trump is to blame and the Republican Party is to blame. After all, we know the Democrats are so trustworthy. I mean, look, they got Joe Biden installed as president, so you know we can trust all the Democrats, right? But Bette Midler, of course, had really nothing else to say other than it's Trump's fault because he made the appointments to the Supreme Court, and it's the Republican Party as a whole because they're Republicans. I really don't know. But all these left-wing millionaires who support Joe Biden, they have nothing else to do. They need somehow, if they're not busy reading a script and acting, because after all, they're actors, so anything they say, I take it as you're auditioning for a role. You want people to like what you say, so maybe they'll listen to you, just like they'll come see you in your movies. But they support everything Joe Biden does. But they make a point, and Henry Winkler made this point, that if you want to change America, you know what you need to do. You need to get out in November and vote. And what is that telling you? All this is going to become is a talking point for Democratic politicians to try to save themselves in the midterm elections and nothing else. There are going to be protests, and some of them, unfortunately, will probably turn violent, but that's what the left is all about. They support that. They supported all the destruction and violence and pain and suffering of the hero George Floyd riots. They didn't condemn it, they condoned it. And in every left city led by a liberal Democrat, they did not care that their own communities were being destroyed, because after all, George Floyd is a saint. We all know that. So they support the violence. They'll support violence if it happens during protests for this decision, and they won't care. They'll continue to blame Trump. They'll continue to blame the Republican Party. And then there was Elizabeth Banks. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know who Elizabeth Banks is. I've never even heard the name. But she said, and I quote, "This is devastating to men and women who believe the government should not decide when or with or whom they could become parents with." Okay, if that makes sense to you, I'm reading her words. I'm reading from the quote. Now, going back to the men and women, I'm taking that as, again, another LGB thing where the government can't tell men that they can't get pregnant. It's their right. And men and women can have children with whoever they want. Unfortunately, that's not the case. A woman can't get pregnant by whoever she wants if she chooses not to. And a man can't get pregnant at all unless they have a woman has her breast removed, takes hormones and grows a beard and gets pregnant, and everybody celebrates it. Look, we told you men can get pregnant. We've all seen that a bunch of times. But again, this is just a liberal talking point for politicians in the upcoming November midterms because they need something to talk about. So, overall, and again, Sleepy Joe added a few more mumbles in there. I couldn't even watch the whole thing because, quite frankly, it was painful to me to watch him try to struggle reading the teleprompters. But it stuns him, and it stunned the country, and it's one of the saddest days in America with this decision. And he, too, urged people to go out and vote locally and federally. Vote for people who will support your rights. Vote for people who will do everything you want them to do, which in my view is the Democratic Party. And overall, out of all these people and these celebrities or washed up celebrities, whatever. I could care less about them either way. The funny part about it is they're unhappy with a decision that was made by conservative justices. Ron Perlman again, dried up old men. Bette Midler, the American Taliban. Barbara Streisand, the American Taliban. And Bette Midler, Trump and the Republican Party. And here's why they're upset, in my opinion. This doesn't affect them whatsoever. It doesn't affect them financially because they're not having trouble making ends meet. They're not living in rural areas. Most of them are supporters of the LGBTQ, but they only do that when it's necessary for it to make a cameo appearance or do a quick interview or make a ridiculous TV commercial. So in my eyes, these people are worthless. I don't care how much money they have or how good of an actor or actress they are. I don't even know if you can call them actresses anymore. That might not be a politically correct term anymore. I don't know. But regardless, the celebrities want to do something good for this country. They could take some of the money that they sit on and live off of. And if they're so concerned about what happens in our country, they should start doing something good for it. Start supporting everyone, not just one party. Support two parties, whatever other parties that pop up. Support everybody. Voice your concerns about the real issues hurting our country today, namely that the current president is doing nothing but destroying America at every step of the way. And every time he signs a piece of legislation, it's something that's hurting America. And they're all about taking guns away. And now they're all up in arms about the Second Amendment decision because they don't want people walking around with concealed carry because they might be able to protect themselves. So they're not happy about that either. And like I said in my last episode, these are the people who walk around behind armed security guards. So they can be unhappy all they want. I personally don't care. They can cry and they can join protests and maybe they can even get involved and throw some bricks, make some signs, hold up their hands, go arm in arm with the protesters and say, we support you, we disagree with this decision, and we're going to fight the fight with you. But when it comes right down to it, when the fight really has to be made, all these bleeding hot celebrities and liberal politicians will crawl back in their holes and stay quiet because they know they're doing wrong. They know they have no place in what's going on, meaning the celebrities. And they know that they could care less what happens to the average American person in this country, whether it's gun control, whether it's abortion, homelessness, mental illness, drug addiction. They've proven time and time again they're always going to come out and make a statement when something bad happens. But in the long run, after this statement is made and they get their 15 seconds out there, then they go back and they wait for their phone to ring and hoping they get a script to read and maybe they'll get a part in a movie. But in the long run, they don't care. They are all wealthy individuals who have no worries in the world. They can afford what they need. They can afford the high prices. They can afford the inflation. And the Democratic Party supports them because the celebrities are funneling millions of dollars into their campaigns. So they're all the same group. Celebrity, politician. We all know a lot of the politicians are very wealthy too. They do not care about the average American citizen struggling day to day just to survive. So all their protesting about this today doesn't mean a damn thing, to me anyways, and it shouldn't mean anything to you, because what are they doing for you? What is Bette Midler and Alyssa Milano and Ron Perlman and Barbara Streisand or Henry Winkler, what are they doing for you besides nothing? And even if you're watching one of their movies, you're paying for it, whether it's in a theater or on your TV. You're just giving them something, and they're giving you nothing, and they will continue to give you nothing but their useless 2 cents. And that's it. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you haven't already liked this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified. You'll never miss an episode. Hold on, because protests are coming, good or bad. That's the way of our world today. And you may see some of those big celebrities there. Oh, and by the way, maybe we'll see Madonna with a vagina hat on, like she did during the big women's march. Maybe that dinosaur will come out too and have something to say. But again, I really don't care. I hope everybody's healthy and safe. And again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.